Traders, welcome. My name is Adam Harris. I am a chief market analyst, and today is Sunday, the 11th of February. I'm recording this for Monday, the 12th of February. So as you can see, we do have a relatively intense calendar. I've really just minimized it down to the yen, the dollar, the pound, and the euro. It's predominantly cable and US dollar news for the most part. I'd keep an eye on the JPY news just in case the Bank of Japan is hinting at any kind of intervention. They really don't like the dollar yen going past that 150 level. So that is something that is on the horizon. We'll have to see how that plays out. The next thing is I've not really highlighted any of the US news. There's so much of it, and the US economy is doing okay right now. There's no real red flags that I can see. So I would give it the usual attention. I don't think that it requires anything extra above that. And then also really focusing on the UK. I think the most interesting stuff coming out of the UK will be GDP figures on Thursday morning. And that'll be up probably before most people even get to their desk. So for the most part, as I said, we can monitor the US stuff, but there's no real, we're not in any danger at this point in time. And so obsessing about it is not really constructive. For the most part, it is probably at this point, we can pay attention to it and review it, but there's nothing that we need to be anxious about. And usually if you know me, I just focus on US news. There just really isn't any requirement. And that's for the first time in a couple of years. So it's very, very good. But it's COVID. We've had COVID, and then we had a correction. And then we came out of a bear market into a bull market. So that's why the last few years has really been a focus on the US dollar news. But we don't really need to worry about it right now. Now we can focus on EU news and cable on the UK as well. And other parts of, if you're living in another part of the world, if you're living in New Zealand, or you're living in Oz, or you're living somewhere else and you'd like me to focus more on that, please do just put a comment in the video section. It usually takes me a week to get through the comments, but if you want me to focus on stuff, then just put that in and I will include that in my weekly analysis. That being said, let's go and have a look at the charts and see what's going on. First up is the VIX operating near all-time lows. So again, market is calm and steady. Very good. Right, let's move on to the dollar index. Dollar index, as I said, is in an uptrend. It is battling with that level of resistance. We haven't quite got through it yet, but the momentum looks a little bit more on the side of the dollar for right now. You can see the weekly candle was a bit of a failure at that point. I'm going to just quickly put a level in there. So there we go. Just see how that, we've got a little bit of a failure on that. We'd have to break the low first. So that's what I'll be looking for this week, is a break of the low of last week's candle on the dollar index. Excuse me, to give us a sense of that. Looking at the monthly, I think the momentum is more inclined to the upside than to the downside. So my expectation is still more that we're going to see a stronger dollar for now and a weaker euro, for example. Looking here again at euro dollar, you can see it's put in a little bit of a bounce at this 1.0725 level. That's worth a little bit of a mark over there. Just put that in. You can see a little bit of a bounce, a little bit but it is an indecision candle. So I didn't mean to murmur there. And of course, we're still within the range. Again, I think that there is still a very fair possibility of it heading lower, which supports the idea of a stronger dollar. But what I would do, the way I would handle it, is really just a high and the low of the monthly candle so far and see which way we break first. We are in a downtrend, and actually therefore this week I'd be looking for, Monday and Tuesday, I'd be looking for bearish candles to set up to continue to the downside if that's the case, trading with the trend for the time being. Sterling is interesting to me because we've kind of come back into this range. That is not what I was looking for, thank you. We've come back into the range, which means that was a failed breakout, which implies that we could see it move to the top of the range. And that's usually what happens when you get a failed breakout. You then see the market then, well, if we can't get out here, let's see if we can get out the other way. So you often see a bit of move to the other way, but we've also moved slightly more bearishly on the MACD. So it's giving some mixed signals there. And I think the dollar is going to be the deciding factor in this particular case. We've got Aussie dollar here. Also, this looks a little bit more bullish. We're still in a downtrend, guys. We're still producing lower highs, lower lows, strong level of support. We've had a bit of a double bottom, bit of a bullish candle here. The hint at this time is that we're going to see it push up a little bit higher. So we maybe might see the start of the week, see a little bit of a weaker dollar, and then see that stronger dollar return. Definitely getting some mixed signals. For example, here when you look at Kiwi dollar, what I would highlight here is definitely we've encountered some strong resistance where we are at the moment. I want to see us continue past that. But the weekly candle looks really nice and bullish. And the monthly candle looks nice and bullish. So looking at this, Kiwi might actually be something to watch this week. There might be some strong New Zealand moves across the border on Kiwi pairs. This looks to me certainly stronger than it should be compared to all of the other majors. Let's have a quick look at dollar yen. Dollar yen continues to push higher. We don't need that anymore. Continues to push up towards the all-time highs, old highs is what I was trying to say there, and 150 is over here. So again, we've got JPY news this week. Let's see how that plays out. But Bank of Japan generally don't really want this to go past this point. So any murmurings to me of Bank of Japan talking about interventions should be paid attention to. I'm a little bit cautious. The yen crosses again are still offering some of the nicest trends, but I've reduced my risk on them. I might still take them, but I've reduced my risk on them. So when traders talk about where their risk is, intervention is a fundamental risk from that perspective. And unfortunately, the only way you can really know if it's coming is to keep your ear to the ground, listen and see what the Bank of Japan or what the Swiss National Bank are saying, because they're really the only two that have ever bothered to intervene in that kind of thing out of the majors so far. Dollar Swiss is starting to stall a little bit over here, but overall still looks more bullish and bearish. Supports a stronger dollar. So we're seeing there's definitely a few here that are supporting the idea of a stronger dollar. Even with the dollar CAD, which is in a bit of a range, that was a failed breakout. It's really all over the place. But when you look at it from a weekly perspective, you can see failure to go higher and failure to go lower. So not offering a lot of clarity there. CAD itself not really doing anything. So I'm not a huge fan of that in terms of trading opportunities. Right, so now we're looking at gold. Gold, again, still is not offering any direction here. It's produced a slightly lower high, so this is a possible head and shoulders pattern. If we break below that upward sloping trend line, we could see it hit a little bit lower. It's really not offering a lot of clarity right now. It's, again, is way lower on my list in terms of tradable opportunities. It does look weak within a longer term uptrend. So we have shorter term weakness with a longer term uptrend, but no real high probability trading setups or patterns for me. Comparing it to, say, silver, you can see silver looks a little bit better. We've got a nice bullish engulfing candle, double bottom here. This looks more bullish to me than bearish. So I think that silver is going to attempt to push higher this coming week. Let me have a quick look through some of these others. So what is copper looking like? Copper is looking very weak within that range, coming back down. Coffee, how's coffee looking? Coffee is looking nice and bullish, so very nice. That's going to continue to push higher. That looks great. Natural gas, also looking weak at this time. So natural gas has continued to drop, going all the way back for most of the last year. It still looks pretty weak over there. Then we'll have a look at light crude oil. Looking good. So we had a bit of that breakup. We had a pullback, and I think last week I spoke about the fact that there was an opportunity for it to continue or to take another run at the high. So that's good. So what can we take away from this? We are on a bull channel. I spoke last week about how if it broke to the downside, that was what you had if you had a bear flag. We're on a bullish channel, and so far it looks as though it's going to continue to push to the upside. So I think the real challenge for light crude is going to be that $79 level. Let's compare it to West Texas. That's going to be the $79 level here as well. So I want to see if it can get past that. But it is trying to push a little bit higher. So it's more bullish than bearish. Have a quick look at wheat. Wheat not going anywhere, so there's nothing there. Sugar has had a solid bounce and is going to take another run at the highs. Very, very choppy. So that was quite a big, strong correction. The clue here is in the quarterly. There we go. Beautiful pullback, nice bullish formation, and a retest of this. So I think we're likely to see sugar recover and continue to push higher. Cotton. Cotton looking good. Also got to get past this level, but it looks more bullish and bearish. A little bit overextended here. Might be a minor retracement, but the direction for the time being looks pretty good to be to the upside. Okay, let's move on to the global indices. So the only thing I want to mention here is that if you look at the behavior of, this is the S&P, I pick up on this, the Dow. If you look at this now, you kind of look at the trickling to the upside compared to the moves that we've had previously. So we had a consolidation, we had a breakout, we had a retest. Looks pretty good. And then we've continued to the upside. So it is bullish, but it appears to be waning in terms of its commitment to that move to the upside. A little bit of a drop here on the weekly. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if we do have a bit of a weekly retracement or a bit of a daily retracement. Anything that comes back down to these highs, back down to 38,000 to test that full support. In principle, look, I'm still bullish, but we do need to have those weekly or daily retracements. Looking at the S&P, solid, looks really good. A little bit overextended on both the monthly and the daily, a little bit on the weekly. So we're kind of entering this sort of period. If we compare that, I would expect possibly by the end of the week that we have a little bit of a retracement and there could be a setup for that. We'll see. Principally looking nice and bullish. The NASDAQ, amazingly, has played out as per this pattern. I mean, that is just ridiculous, don't you think? So this is what I love about technical analysis. If you go back a couple of weeks ago, so if you go and have a look on, I presume it was either Sunday, probably that Sunday the 27th or Saturday the 27th when I recorded that, you can see how I mapped this out. I mapped it out because that's relatively standard behavior for charts to do, to break a previous high, pull back, retest it, and keep going. But I find it nevertheless amusing when it actually does exactly that. All right, so the purpose of that is to show newer traders that you can map out potential ways in which the market can play out. There are not an unlimited number of ways, guys. There's usually only 3 or 4 different ways the market can play out. and we can determine if they're more likely, if it's more likely to go up than go down. Anyway, so that is hilarious. Looks nice and good. Okay, so then we've got Russell is looking good. So we had a really nice bullish push this last week. I think it's going to try and break out soon. There's a lot of hinting here that, look, within a range, you don't know until it breaks out. But to me, it looks like it really is going to try and break out soon. So that's a good sign. That supports that bullish sentiment. Then we've got the FTSE, which is still stuck within the range. That one I was looking to see if we broke above here. And we appear to be looking very weak. The question, we don't really know if it's going to go down until it breaks these lows. So actually, it's still potentially producing high lows. I'd be intrigued this week if we get a bullish candle. That would support the idea that it's going to break out to the upside. The DAX is definitely struggling in this area. We spoke about that nice little bull channel, bull flag, broke out to the upside. So that would have been a nice trade. I missed it at the back of the time. I missed it, but that would have been a nice little trade. And you can see it's really stumbling over here. So this is worthwhile. I think we need to mark this at the moment. We need to mark that. You can round it up to the 17,000 level, but that's 16,970. Definitely a problem. We could see a consolidation or a breakout, but I think there's also a fair chance we're going to see a bit of a pullback down into these lows here, 16,600. You can see it really battling with that level. It usually, at some point, it's going to lead to a breakout. The question is, will that breakout be this week or not? Very nice sort of, here we've got a bit of bearish divergence on the ASX. Pull back, looks like it wants to continue. Overall, that looks okay. Nothing, no real red flags there for me right now. Let's look at the Nikkei. Nikkei looks good. Again, I pointed out at that head and shoulders, I didn't think it was likely to happen because the market was looking so big, but I also spoke about that possibility that potentially with this one, if we broke the low of that, we would have a swing high and price would come down. We don't have that swing high yet, but I think I just want to kind of mark, I just want to mark this level a little bit here, just kind of this. Similar to what I've spoken about in the past with Bitcoin, we are at some point going to have a breakthrough of this one. It's struggling. It's a little bit overextended, but more bullish than bearish. But at some point, I would look to see if there's a bit of a break to the downside. Okay, so let's move on to, let's have a look at some of these stocks. Apple here, looking good so far. A bit of a consolidation period. I expect that to ultimately move to the upside. Doesn't look so bad. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon obviously running up to those all-time highs. So this week, will be interesting to see if it continues to push higher, but there's no doubt it's overextended on the daily, overextended on the weekly, overextended on the monthly. I would love to see a bit of a pullback and a breakout pullback before it breaks out to all-time highs, but it could do that first. Could break out all-time highs and then have that pullback. Looks good. Okay, AT&T here has pulled back. Relatively deep retracement to a level here, produced a bullish candle. So this week, that's what I'm gonna have a look at to see if we continue up. There's more in its favor than against it, so I think there's a fair chance that we could see this head back up, resume that uptrend anyway. ARK is actually starting to look more and more bullish here. Again, you can see it here very similar to what we saw, for example, with the DAX or with the FTSE. It looks like it wants to break out. The nice little bit of a bullish engulfing candle here. I think we might actually see ARK break out to the upside here. ASML, just ridiculously overextended, very nice and bullish. Would love to see some sort of pullbacks. So this week I'd be looking any kind of pullbacks on that daily. But look at that monthly and that weekly, very, very overextended, very similar to NVIDIA in terms of technology. So right now there's a big demand in terms of obviously AI stuff that's driven also with semiconductors. So those are really big at the moment. So that's a big driver between both NVIDIA and ASML. Glencore, okay, so Glencore has broken out of the bottom of the range, and that is significant. Okay, it's not a failed breakout at this time. That looks like a breakout to the downside there. Failed, and you can see that behavior above that 50-period moving average, and then wobble underneath it, and now it's broken away. So now I would say that this is more, that's pretty much kind of set which way it wants to go. For whatever reason, it seems that it wants to head down towards these lows, even possibly as far as 342. Possibly just going to head towards 350. So I was expecting more out of that. I thought it would be more bullish than it is, but so be it. Tesco as well, pull back into these old highs makes sense. So this week I'll be looking for a bullish finish here if we can get that. Amex, similar to ASML. Very big, strong move. Look at these nice bullish candles on its way. Certainly overextended here. I'd look to see some of this type of behavior with candles slow down. Overextended, so very similar but looking strong. Berkshire Hathaway looks good, fantastic, nothing there. Coca-Cola Coca-Cola, nice little bit of a move here. We've been producing lower highs. So clear bearish divergence there. So for me, what would be significant here is if it just starts to break these lows. So instead of going up this week, it actually goes down. Then I would see that it's significant, which means we break below all these moving averages here. And then there could be some implications on that one. And now, nice little bullish monthly forming on BP there. Makes sense, guys. We've seen crude oils, we've seen those oils looking bullish. So therefore, BP and both Exxon are looking relatively bullish, certainly more bullish than bearish. I mean, they're highly correlated, so that's a good indication of it. It would be, I think the time will come when if these companies, for example, BP, ExxonMobil, are not necessarily as dependent, ironically, on fossil fuels as their kind of source of income. If they start looking towards green stuff and they start to deviate from that, that would where you would see it almost immediately. If the stock starts to climb and oil prices are dropping, you know they've separated the income and started to deviate away from fossil fuels. So General Motors looks good. I wanted to see what would happen here. We had a bit of a breakout. We can get rid of this stuff. We don't need this now. But that was a nice little bullish pullback and a breakout. So now the big question is going to be, can you get past this $39.40 level? That's really big. That's been a strong resistance in the past. We had a failed breakout here. I want to see if we can get past that. So that's really what we're looking for in this particular case. JP Morgan continues to look good, but a bit of a failure here. So this one's stumbling a little bit, but overall still looks good. I still expect that momentum to move to the upside. Adidas really battling. So I spoke in the past about the change of the angle of momentum of price. It's not looking as strong as it should. It's produced a couple of bullish candles here off the lows, but it's just battling. So it hasn't, to my mind, hasn't managed to get out of that. We have got a bit of a double bottom here, looking nice and bullish, but you've got to break above these highs, got to break above that 180 level. It's not looking great. Weird. Meta obviously had a bumper week last week. The week before last week. And now I would say overextended. I'd love to see it have a bit of a correction. But you could see, just look at that, almost stratospheric, almost parabolic in terms of that. Just straight up looking so bullish. Needs to have a bit of a correction. Very much due for that. Morgan Stanley, not really offering much clarity about where it wants to go. You can see that's why we put the question mark here. Just not giving much clarity. It's battling a little bit with where it is. Need to just give that more time. NVIDIA just taken off. Why did I highlight this? I can't remember it. Oh, I think I was highlighting it because I thought we were getting a bit overextended and therefore we're approaching an area where we might get a bit of a pullback, and I'm looking for a red weekly candle. No sign of it. So let's just move that up to there. We even gapped quite a bit there. So we gapped, came down, touched the highs, and then carried on. But yeah, I was looking for a bit of a pullback into those moving averages. No sign of that yet. There's been two that have frequently outplayed me, and it's been Bitcoin and NVIDIA. It's absolutely fine. It happens. It's okay. If it's just those, you know, it's not a pattern. It's not a chart-wide or market-wide pattern. It's just a couple of outliers, which is not a bad thing. Just saying. Again, okay, here Netflix looking for a little bit of a retracement here, but still looks nice and bullish. Just this is not much here. There's a bit of that bull flag there. We've got PayPal battling, it's really trying to reverse here. You can see another bullish candle, move up, bullish candle, move up, comes down here. Will we get a bit of a move up this week? Now it starts to look more and more bearish, so it's looking weaker and not stronger. Looks like we're not going to get that breakout candle to the upside, so we get rid of that. Spotify continues to look good. Same thing, very similar to a few of the others. Netflix and everything, nice and overextended. Needs to take a bit of a breather. So I would expect either this week or next week to see some of these just take a bit of a breather. Here, for example, Spider, also nice little pullback and a bullish engulfing bar. Look at that. Looks good. So I think it's going to continue up from here. It's come back to test these highs. That looks more to me as though that's likely to continue. And again, this has to get through these lows. And I've spoken about this before. That was a really strong double bottom. So my expectation is that it will break through. Ultimately, it will succeed. Will it be this week? Let's find out. Then we have FedEx. There was this correction and then that failure there. So it's ping-ponging between these levels. We're just going to have to see with this one again. It's stuck between this low and this high, and it hasn't really gone anywhere just yet. Then we've got Tesla. So Tesla's looking bullish right now. So I want to be very clear on this one. So Tesla right now has formed a very strong sort of a trend reversal system on the daily here. That trend reversal pattern on the daily, that is a very bullish weekly candle. What that tells me is that I think there's a very good chance it's going to push its way at least up to these previous lows over here. What I found interesting is that we were still stuck in a bit of a channel going down like this, and we got to the very, very last place in that downward trend, and it turned around and it's pushed up. So I have no doubt that it has a good chance of pulling back up here towards, say, 210. The real interesting thing for me is it going to stay within this downward channel? Will it come all the way back up to these highs? In other words, would we see it head in towards, say, 237? That I actually am not sure of at this time, but it is finding support at a relatively historic significant level, and it is in a downtrend on a monthly and a weekly, but it's going to change into, it's going to do a weekly retracement now. So the question is how strong is it going to be? Is it going to bump its head up into these area in the moving averages here and then continue down? And so I would watch the space. I would say over the next month it's going to be very interesting. Fundamentally, I'm finding it very hard to see Tesla turning around. It's going the other way compared to a lot of the other stocks in the S&P 500. And all the stuff that I look at, all the numbers I look at, it just doesn't look very bright, at least for the next couple of years. So let's see what happens. I'm just saying that's a strong thing. The shorter term for me is it's going to move higher. This looks pretty strong as a reversal. And the question is how far is it going to go? So it could go as far as 220, could even potentially go as far as 230, and then we're going to have to see if that's the beginning of a reversal, or if that was its kind of a dead cat bounce type of thing. Vanguard looking strong, looking solid. Again, these need a bit of a correction, a bit of a retracement. Walt Disney for me had that really nice, I hope that I've spoken about it here. These were looking very nice and bullish here, and there we go. Disney could turn out. It's also bumping its head now within this range, similar to a lot of other charts that I've discussed here. The question for me is Disney going to work its way back up to the all-time highs? I know that they really want to do very well with streaming. They want to focus on being a streaming leader, so we'll have to see how that goes. But my point is that this could be potentially one of those ones that makes a really solid comeback. And an example of one that has managed to do that would be Amazon. Amazon took a real hit and managed to recover from where it was. Bonds, so the US one's still looking bearish here. You can see how they've pulled back and they've now produced a swing high, so they're going to continue lower. Eurobonds to me look nice and bullish. I was looking for a bullish breakout candle here. We have not had that, so I'm going to get rid of that. Instead, we're pushing a little bit lower again, so we're going to go back down towards these lows. So no real turnaround in that. You could argue that that means the market is bullish. It's not really seeing these as a valid or an appealing investment vehicle right now, or an investment option. It's still seeing stocks as an appealing one. So that's one way to interpret it. Bitcoin breaking out to the upside looks good. We had that really nice pullback and it continued up, and we had a solid breakout. So I wasn't really watching it this week, but there we go. Ethereum's also looking good. So for the most part, these all followed through really on their build up and their breakout. That was a nice little bullish candle we spoke about. It's broken to the upside. So for now, I expect based off these will continue. That one also started to breach this, and that has followed through and moved a little bit higher. And Binance as well has managed to have a bit of a recovery there. So that was a strong finish on those. So there we go. This should break out this week. Let's see. So there's quite a few charts that are stuck on the monthly or weekly, are stuck within a range. And they are showing some signs on the weekly or daily of looking very close to breaking out. Doesn't mean they'll break out this week, but it would be interesting to me if all of them do. If something happens in the market, there's a lot of US news, could be something that happens that breaks them all out, and then that's it. But yeah, overall, as I said, most things looking pretty good. It's weird because we've been so used to so much bad news for so long that the idea of something being okay or not being terrible is just alien to us. But there have been periods in my life and periods in most people's lives where they can remember where it wasn't all doom and gloom. So I'm going to leave you with that. Ladies and gents, have a great week. Thank you.